Welcome everybody to this webinar with me, Victoria Blomqvist, and also Dr. Alan Redman. I'm working at Team Taylor as a team manager for customer success management here in the Nordics. And I'm going to be the monitor for this webinar. So just to give you an introduction for the topic that we are going to talk about today, it's with the Great Resignation and a new generation of working professionals who are digital natives with different values to previous generations. Recruiters are being forced to evaluate their strategies for hiring and retaining top talent. So we have invited Dr. Alan Redman to tell us more about the rise of the soft skills and why companies have to take into considerations other values than before. And before we get started, I'm just going to highlight the chat function. We have tried it out now with just to see which country you are from, but please, everyone is more than welcome to get involved in the conversation and ask questions throughout the webinar. If we can't answer them straight away, please just write them down, because we will have a moment in the end of the webinar to focus on the Q&A. And from now, the chat will be open. So just feel free to pop up any thoughts or questions in there. And we also recommend you that you're sending the questions to everyone, so everyone in the webinar can follow the questions. So I'm going to mute myself now and welcome Alan. You are the head of science and technology at Clevery. Please tell us more about yourself.
Thanks, Victoria. Hello, everyone. Thanks for coming along today. So, yeah, my name is Dr. Alan Redman. I look after the science and technology function here at Clevery. So I look after both the development of psychometrics and the platform itself. I'm a psychologist by profession. I'm not a technologist by trade. So yeah, I guess I bring the psychological insights into the building of products, features, and services here at Clevery. And yeah, based here in the UK, in Brighton, but we also have offices in Stockholm and Helsinki, which I guess is near a few of you. What I'm going to be doing is spending about 20 minutes or so, I guess, setting the scene. So we will look at why soft skills are so critical now and over the next 10 years and decades beyond, but also, I guess, bring it really up to date in terms of the impact of the inevitable changes that have happened as a result of COVID and workplaces and employers and company cultures and so on. And after that, we will do some kind of Q&A, and yeah, we're really happy, as Victoria said, to cover off any questions you've got, either in the chat as we go along, or I guess more meaty questions we can discuss towards the end. So yeah, please do throw them in. For those of you who don't know Clevery, we're a talent management organisation. So we have an acquisition business, we have a talent assessment business and advisory. We've got customers all over the world, and we've been doing this for over 30 years. And our main focus is soft skills and helping companies to recruit better, develop better, and ultimately perform better, because they take a soft skills focus on work. So let's start off by looking at soft skills and why they are more important than ever. And there are four trends really in play right now over the last few years. There's a growth in the focus on soft skills across work and organisations anyway, and we can look at some of the research behind that. There's the growth of, let's call it machines versus people, There's more recent trends like the Great Resignation, and there's some hard science behind it as well, such as predictive validity, which we will take a look at. So in terms of, I guess, the growth in interest in soft skills, it isn't just us here at Clevery who are, I guess, involved in this. Things like, well, across all organisations, there's a renewed focus on the human, on the psychological, on the soft skills element. And you can see that in one place, for example, in terms of the trends around Google searches, so increasing all across the world over the last decade. Also from research and surveys from different sources, which, for example, Deloitte interviewed business leaders across the world, all of whom believe that soft skill intensive jobs are going to grow 2.5 times faster than other jobs over the next 10 years. They're going to become far more important than hard skills jobs. Deloitte also found that by 2030, these same business leaders expect soft skills intensive jobs to make up nearly 2/3 of all jobs. So now is a great time to be, I guess, developing your interest, your expertise in working with soft skills. In terms of the types of soft skills that employers see as becoming more and more important over the next 4 or 5 years are things like this. And we will touch again on what we mean by soft skills and what they are. But when you ask business leaders, they mean this sort of thing. So it's already, you can see it's very different from traditional hard skills such as expertise, education, experience, the kind of things you'll find in a CV. So already some interest in soft skills, which is, I guess, pushing them up the agenda, but also some other trends in the workplace, such as machines and automation. So the World Economic Forum reports that automation is gradually replacing jobs, specifically those jobs that have a hard skills focus. And they estimate that some 85 million jobs will shift from humans to machines by 2025, which is not that far away. But at the same time, 97 million new roles may emerge that actually require robots, algorithms, automation, and people to work together. And as a result, by 2030, yeah, we will see soft skill intensive occupations account for 2/3 of all jobs. So increasingly, humans will be needed for the soft skills they can bring to work that robots, algorithms, and automation can't. So that's another reason why soft skills are going to be so important, certainly in working organisations. All of the robots on the bottom line, yeah, exist now and are in workplaces and homes. More recently, we've seen developments in the way people regard work and their employer and the values they bring to bear when making decisions about their jobs. And economists have used the term the Great Resignation. It has been documented especially clearly in the US. You may have seen this in the news, where a Burger King restaurant and pretty much the whole team quit at the same time back in the spring. And it's something that seems to be happening as we emerge cautiously from COVID and from some of the more extreme lockdown measures that employers, businesses and organisations had to put in place. COVID had already accelerated certain workplace trends. So remote working existed before COVID, but there was often amongst employers and bosses suspicion about it, about whether people would work as hard at home as they do in the office. And we had, you know, that culture of presenteeism, having to go in every day. Remote working has become far more normal, far more accepted in most organisations, and what we're seeing is that COVID has accelerated the emergence of hybrid working, where people work between home and the office. Remote working, where maybe you can employ people who don't even live near the office and may never be seen there, and some organisations are losing the workplace altogether. So lots of COVID accelerated workplace trends. The other trend, or the other thing it's made more obvious, is the jobs and the employers which were toxic and horrible before COVID, but it becomes really obvious as a result of COVID. And those employers and workplaces which were horrible were particularly unpleasant during COVID. They would lay people off, they would make them work in unsafe conditions, there would be distrust of remote working with spyware and surveillance being used. And I guess it really came to become very clear that they weren't great places to work. At the same time, COVID encouraged a change in people's personal values. And I think we certainly perhaps saw this more in younger generations, whereby they were questioning their relationship with work and life in general, and they were coming to value other things than the 9 to 5 and going to the office. And certainly economies like America and others in Europe have seen kind of a perfect storm between those two things. So terrible jobs becoming more obvious to the employee, changing values anyway, so more people are ready to leave, ready to move on, ready to consider other opportunities. And we're seeing that in things like the Great Resignation. That's especially true of A players, of high performing people. They've got more options because they have the soft skills. There's a reason they perform well, that they are A players, and it's because they have the really valuable commodity that a lot of jobs and employers find attractive. The other reason soft skills and the Great Resignation are so closely related is because those toxic jobs, those horrible employers, culturally lack soft skills. They have leadership styles, for example, which are poor. So the organisation itself lacks soft skills, and that's why it's going to struggle to hang on to good people increasingly. Finally, we have science. I guess this is my favourite bit, the science bit. So we have known for a long time, really, but I think the message is finally getting across that soft skills predict performance better than anything else in work. And we know that because of a scientific method called predictive validity, which some of you may be familiar with. And this is a statistical measure we can use to find out, for example, how well does our hiring process predict job performance. So the techniques, the structure, the decisions we make during recruitment, and how well does it actually predict job performance. And when you run studies, you tend to get a league table emerge of levels of effectiveness of different forms of recruitment and selection. When you put all of that data together, as Schmidt, O, and Schaffer did in 2016 and in previous years, they've done this on the same study, and when you put all of that data together, you get a very clear picture with traditional methods like interviews actually contributing very little to the strength of the prediction, only 18%, whereas more soft skills related measures like personality or general mental ability contributing far more to the prediction of performance. So if you're using the powerful soft skills methods of recruiting in combination with interviews, for example, you will get a far more accurate prediction of who your A players are going to be, who the candidates are that you should be recruiting. If you rely on interviews and something like hard skills, so CVs, you're going to get a much poorer prediction. So, talked a lot about why they're important, but what are they? So we class soft skills as any attribute, any quality that can be classified as a psychological trait. So something about the individual that makes them the person they are. Anything inside them that is part of their psychological makeup. So these psychological traits make you who you are. They make you different from other people and similar to other people as well who share the same traits. And they drive, they determine how you work on your own, how you work with others, how you think and learn, and how you respond to challenges and demands. In other words, they drive the behaviours that lead to our performance. And that's why when you use soft skills in your organisational processes, across all of it, not just recruitment, you get better performance at work, and you get people who are more engaged, who develop themselves, who want to stick around, and yeah, you find you're surrounded by people who are getting some small joy from their work routinely, and enjoying what they do. And here we are, some of the, I guess, most common soft skills that we're asked when employers want us to help out to both assess, predict, measure, train and develop with their employees. And the same soft skills actually can be applied to leaders and organisations. And it's the organisations that have these soft skills as part of their culture who are going to prosper. So soft skills are critical, but we do still need hard skills in some jobs. The trouble is with hard skills is there's a focus based on a tradition, a outmoded way of working, of building organisations that doesn't reflect modern life. So they're really based on that 20th century model of employment where we were focusing on productivity, where organisations didn't change much and tended to be very rigid and process-based. So it's important people could stick to that process and learn it, and they would be taught or trained how to do their jobs. We looked at jobs in terms of demands and industry-specific hard skills. That's what CVs were for, to see if they had the expertise, experience, or knowledge for that job. And the hard skills themselves were measured through very concrete outcomes. So you wanted to know what technical qualifications you had, your job history, and your years in the profession, and so on. Soft skills, on the other hand, reflect the current 21st century model of employment, where there's a performance focus. We're interested in the behaviours and what you deliver as a result of, I guess, adopting the appropriate and powerful behaviours. It's suitable for organisations where change is frequent and pace is high. For organisations which are fluid, ambiguous, there's uncertainty, you have to figure things out. And often you have to self-learn and develop yourself based on the experiences and the traits that you, I guess, draw on to respond to the challenges of the modern workplace. The soft skills that people possess are not necessarily specific to a particular industry or role in the way that hard skills are. They're much more transferable. There's a feeling sometimes they're tricky to measure. If you want to know personality or mental firepower or emotional intelligence, that's hard to get at. In actual fact, it's not. The split really between hard skills and soft skills is also generational, as well as the type of employer. So modern employers do tend to favour soft skills because they have modern jobs. Their employees, who perhaps are drawn more from the younger Gen X, Millennial and Gen Z age ranges, who tend to be digital immigrants and natives, and tend to find themselves in soft skills jobs. And they bring with them values around development via changing jobs and personal growth, rather than accruing technical knowledge. The hard skills, on the other hand, are those more traditional jobs that employers tend to, I guess, employ more boomers, those still working, and perhaps older Gen Xers. They tend to be more alien and or digital aliens, immigrants, rather than natives. And they tend to go for the old school recruitment and talent development approaches. So 3 takeaways, I guess, to take into our discussion. One, we know from science, we know from experience that soft skills predict performance, and actually they predict the ability to learn more soft skills even better. So whatever soft skills you've got, we know actually those are going to help you develop more of them. And we also know that soft skills do this much better than hard skills. Secondly, we know that COVID, automation, the way jobs are built and designed these days have increased the critical nature of these soft skills. They're becoming more and more important. And the Great Resignation is simply a symptom of this, and certainly a symptom of the soft skills mismatch between some employers and many workers, especially younger workers. And finally, we know from the research that it's a combination of soft skills assessments that predict performance best. So whilst general mental ability is the most important ingredient, even that predicts performance best when combined with other forms of assessment, like the interview. And of course, there are others which I'm sure we can spend some time discussing. So I'm going to quickly touch on this. Following this webinar, we do have some soft skills certification courses available. We will be contacting you by email to tell you a bit more. But if you are interested in extending your understanding, your expertise, and actually maybe developing some of the soft skills themselves, we have 4 modules which we will all webinar based, which we can make available to you. So look out for your invitation email. We'll publish these afterwards. This is some of the research I've used to make some of the claims. When I've talked about research and evidence and surveys, this is some of it there. Again, we can share this after the webinar as well, just to know, just so you're reassured, it's not just me saying this. So yeah, I'm happy to I guess move into the Q&A.
Thank you so much, Ellen, for that presentation. And I'm actually going to start with a question from the chat. So when you had your presentation, we're talking about, and we are referring a lot to recruitment, but do you see that this can apply to internal job development as well, when we're talking about soft skills? And
totally. And actually, cleverly, we have something we call our Joy at Work model. And that is a process any organisation can follow to maximise joy. And by joy, we mean people doing jobs that engage and motivate them, people developing, progressing through the organisation, staying, becoming engaged, and I guess adopting a leadership style which creates success. And the model is simple. You need to take a soft skills focus when you're recruiting. So think about the design of jobs and the kind of soft skills that are required. You need to assess and use data from soft skills assessments to make hiring decisions. You need to feed in data from performance, so you can see which soft skills are working. You can help people develop the ones which are important. And then you need to continue with that across the kind of talent management journey. So build soft skills into the way you help people to learn, to grow, to lead, and develop their careers with you. And when you do that, what we see is, the joy is shared. So the organisation is doing well, as is the as are its people, as are everyone who's working there. So it is, not, but it is more than recruitment. But recruitment is kind of always the obvious place to start. It's kind of a silver bullet for raising your game really quickly.
Nice. I have actually, I have a question that is regarding, like, how can you look after soft skills when you're recruiting? Like, if we're talking about the job ads, what can you write in the job ads? Which question can you ask when your candidates are applying to a job? Yeah,
I think with job ads, for example, I guess many of us are familiar with things like competencies. They're quite old school now. They would tend to be a mixture of knowledge, skills, and abilities. So competencies were a little bit hard skills because depending on the job, you might be looking for some very specific technical expertise or experience. But you can describe soft skills using the same sort of language. And a competency like problem solving, for example, is much more a soft skill than something that's necessarily been taught or trained. A soft skill like a competency like flexibility is a soft skill. People are going to vary in the degree to which they are agile and flexible and respond to change effectively. So I think when you're describing the kind of person you want in job ads, then you can certainly use soft skills in that language in a way which won't sort of look strange or very, very different. But what you are doing is stressing the importance of those soft skills over, 5 years experience in a sales role, for example. That doesn't predict sales performance, in fact. And then when you're actually in the process, it's a mixture of assessment methods that you can use to understand the degree to which people have those soft skills or could learn them, could develop them. And then when you're helping people to develop, once you've hired them, well, we like to promote onboarding discussions where the line manager explores the soft skills strengths of the new hire on day one to build those, to make sure they're drawing on those strengths. And of course, that becomes development discussions, coaching, mentoring, 360, yeah, I guess self-development programs to allow people to, access things which will benefit their personal growth, which is normally soft skills. So a big answer there, because there's some to pull out. But I think as far as the kind of front end of a recruitment process is concerned, you just need to think differently about the job and think about what soft skills are important to that job, and then attract and recruit accordingly. And of course, we can help with that. Team Taylor can help with that. That's kind of why we're here today.
And if you would like to highlight this kind of soft skills, how can you do that when you're preceding an interview with this candidate?
I guess in the same way that we might be familiar with competencies in job ads and attraction, in interviews where you would previously focus on competencies, you instead take a soft skills focus. So a soft skill we often get asked for is, we use the term learning agility, and it's whether someone can quickly learn from stuff that happens and maybe change their behavior to get better results. There's some soft skills around flexibility. There's some soft skills around your kind of ability to think, to analyze situations and make decisions quickly as well. So in an interview, if I want learning agility, I will ask questions about times when the individual has used that in the past, when they have been required to adapt quickly to changing events, when they have had to change their behaviour quickly to get a better result from someone, when they have had to deal with a situation which was unclear or ambiguous. In all of those, that soft skill would have been expressed or not, and you as the interviewer can decide the degree to which there's some evidence for that. I think the other thing you need to do in an interview if you're adopting a soft skills approach is remember the soft skills of the organisation, and that's about communicating your culture or the employer's culture, its values, its soft skills, its leadership style, because I think if the really high quality candidates can see a match between the way they like to work, their soft skills strengths, and the way the organisation or employer likes people to work, then you're more likely to be able to hire and hang on to that person in the long run.
And do you see, if we're talking about, I'm going to go to roles and industries, do soft skills have the same importance if you look in a different role and industries?
Yeah. Now, I think if you look at, you can look at very different roles, and it's not always the same soft skills, but soft skills will really be important. So developers, technical developers, coders are always high value individuals. They do have very specific technical hard skills that are valuable to many organizations. And so, you need to attract and using those hard skills, you need to make sure they can program in the right language. And you might need to test those hard skills before you hire them. You might need to use someone like HackerRank to measure their technical hard skills. But if you hired two developers with equal levels of hard skill, one will perform better than the other, most likely. And that comes down to soft skills. That comes down maybe to their style of problem solving, their creativity in the way they look at a need and write code, their mental agility, so how elegantly they can write the code, their relationship management soft skills, so how well they're able to work in a project team, to speak with customers, or to influence non-technical people. So there's a whole range of soft skills which are really important in what looks like the most technical role. I had a client a number of years ago, to take a very different example, who hired delivery drivers to take products from a retailer, online retailer, to customers' homes. And they found it very difficult. Delivery drivers are in short supply. Being able to drive a truck is a hard skill, which is valuable, certainly here in the UK at the moment. So rather than struggle to attract truck drivers, they adopted a new approach, which was to think about the other skills that were important and what made great delivery drivers. And those were the customer service skills. And those were around the soft skills, which meant the customer had the same level of service on the doorstep from the driver that they did, from the store, from the contact center, from, I guess, this customer service professionals. And so they literally changed the recruitment method to hire for those soft skills, which are actually very difficult to train. It's difficult to train service soft skills. And then they trained the hard skills. They trained them to be drivers. That was the easy bit, in fact. So sometimes the most difficult to hire jobs, if they look very hard skills intensive, then maybe, flip it on its head and then train that kind of thing later. The same goes for retail. Retail experience is not a predictor of being a great retail employee. Even sales experience isn't a great predictor. It's suggestive, but actually it'd be the soft skills that are driving the difference between sales performance.
So if you would like to develop the soft skills, is that it hard to develop soft skills that you need in a particular job? Would you say that it's it's harder to develop soft skills than hard skills?
The most difficult soft skills to develop are the ones which really draw on your personal values. And people will find it much easier to develop effective service behaviours and service soft skills for working with customers if they actually like and enjoy working with customers. If you don't, then you're doing it, to use the English phrase, through gritted teeth. You're finding it very hard to be nice to customers. So some soft skills, it's going to be much easier if they align with your values. But there are other soft skills which are actually just very behavioural and which can be learned more readily. So a soft skill of being an effective salesperson can sometimes just come down to technique. So there's some kind of hard skills stuff around, well, this is a sales process to go through. These are the things that you can do well. And those are just behaviours. And then there's behaviours you can acquire around rapport, influence, relationship management. And it'll be easier for some than others. Some people will be more natural about it, but can be learned. So it varies. In the end, at the recruitment stage, it's much, much easier to find people with the right soft skills for the job than to try to develop them later. Once you've got people in role, if you want them to do something different or something extra, like be a manager, then it's about thinking, okay, we know what soft skills strength that person already demonstrates in the role. How can we build on those strengths? How can we make those great sales soft skills into great leadership soft skills? So you've got kind of a head start. So they are learnable, but it can be harder. It can be harder than learning hard skills, which in the end is just training and knowledge and skills. Those are easier to learn.
And if we're looking at, does it differ anything from in-office roles? What skills are more relevant, and etc., if we're looking at more specific soft skills?
So you're kind of asking, in kind of white collar work, what are the most specific soft skills that tend to be the important ones?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. It does vary a bit between jobs, not as much as you might think. And I guess we tend to find they fall into three broad clusters. So there's something about your soft skills in relation to doing the work. So it's kind of your task style. So it's something about the way you solve problems and make decisions, which is psychological in nature. It's how you form judgments and so on. It's how you organize your work, how you plan, how you structure. All of those soft skills are important in white collar work, but people can have different strengths. So just because someone looks less organized or structured as a soft skill actually probably makes them more effective in terms of responding to change and kind of thinking on their feet. They're a bit more agile because they don't tend to rely on planning and structure instead. So different soft skills can drive performance in the same job. You don't always need the same ones. And so we have tasks, we have people soft skills. I guess those are the obvious ones. So in white collar work, in office work, anything around relationship management, working in teams and groups, taking part in meetings and discussions, influencing, being appropriately assertive, all of that stuff are people soft skills. And again, some people have those kind of plumbed in because they're psychological traits. Some people need to do a bit of work to try and acquire certain behaviours to add to their existing toolkit. And different ways of dealing with people in the same role actually can be equally effective. So different soft skill strengths can be brought to bear. And then finally, there's quite a big cluster we call kind of drive. And some of that is around motivational soft skills. So what do you find rewarding, engaging, and satisfying? And if a particular office-based job doesn't have those rewards or challenges, then you will find it harder to find joy and to stay with that job. So those are important soft skills to consider in recruitment and development. There are drive soft skills around culture fit. We touched on that earlier. So people will prefer to work in a job in an organisation where the culture, the soft skills of the culture match their own values. So you get culture fits. And then finally, there are some kind of emotional ones. So soft skills around the way you deal with and manage both your own emotions and the emotions of others. Sometimes historically called emotional intelligence. We prefer to look at it more broadly. It's the kind of psychological traits you've got for dealing with the stuff that happens at work. And in the office, there can be, some periods of success or adversity you have to deal with. There can be difficult people, difficult customers, difficult colleagues, even that you have to deal with. All of those place an emotional load on you. And if you've got the right emotional soft skills for that role, then you'll find it harder to deal with than if you don't. So again, important to consider when you're looking at the job. In actual fact, blue collar roles, not especially different. They might have a slightly stronger hard skills focus, and that's sometimes why blue collar jobs are more quickly automated, because if they're repetitive and you can build a machine to do it, then they will. In white collar jobs, automation tends to replace tasks which are repetitive, which you can train an algorithm to do in the same way. But in both those types of job, there will always be some soft skills stuff that the machine or the algorithm can't do.
And it's so interesting that you are talking about like machine learning and how we are replacing humans with automation now. And what would you say? How can we ensure that we're keeping the human touch? And like, because we're talking about it's important with soft skills. So when we are replacing some tasks or jobs actually with machines,
Yeah, and you know, to remind ourselves, the World Economic Forum said 85 million roles, right, by 2025 will be replaced by automation. It's a lot. The optimist in me believes that the jobs that are being replaced are the boring, repetitive ones that a machine can do. So I saw, yeah, I guess if a human being is having to do the same thing over and over again, in a, you know, using software, for example, that can probably be automated. And the optimist in me would like to feel that frees up that individual to do work which doesn't require them to do the same thing over and over again, which is more rewarding or joyful. In the end, no robot yet, no algorithm yet can replace every single element of the job, because in the end, there will be soft skills elements. And I guess we can see that in white collar terms with contact centers, with call centers. So most of us are now familiar with chatbots and having that kind of automated algorithmic conversation when we have a customer service query with a company. But at some point you reach the limits of what that algorithm has learned and can do, and that's where the human being comes in. So already that human being's job has been improved, arguably, because they're only having to deal with stuff which requires human smarts, problem solving, service values and behaviours, emotional management, maybe some creativity, all of that stuff which humans enjoy using. What they haven't got to do is, you know, answer countless questions about account numbers or passwords, things like that. Those can be automated. In the same way, in a blue-collar job, it tends to be the routine bench work where, you know, it could be a machine punching it out, not a human, that will get replaced first. In logistics, I often see the robots doing the literally the heavy lifting, and you know, putting away products which yeah, humans don't need to get involved with. Humans are doing the working together in a team, often alongside the robots. And you know, we hear the you know, I've come into contact with terms like cobots. So that can be a human or a robot working together, you know, to make a process run. And I think offices will be the same.
But do you think that machines will be able to learn soft skills?
No, they'll be able to simulate them. And so that chatbot is a really good example. I've interacted with personal assistants who are algorithms. Who are, you know, I've booked a meeting with someone, and yeah, it's been an algorithm actually who's just plumbed into their calendar, who's conducting the conversation. So it is programmed, learned responses to a range of things I might say as a human being in the chat box. As soon as I do something different that the algorithm can't learn, it stops working and a human being has to take over. So I think there's learned behaviors, that machine learning will become increasingly sophisticated. It will learn to simulate a broader range of stuff. But in the end, that personal assistant booking meetings is the only thing it can do. It can't do anything else that a personal assistant can do. It can't have a different kind of conversation. It can't help out with other stuff. So it can only replace a certain amount of the job. As far as actual learning real soft skills, whilst they can be simulated, that's, I guess, a promise of artificial intelligence, which is not going to be realised anytime soon. I was studying artificial intelligence as an undergrad, you know, 30 years ago, and back then it was about trying to create consciousness, and it was felt to be a very long away. And I think if we'd seen what exists now by way of machine learning and algorithms, we'd be blown away, but we wouldn't look at it and go, oh yeah, that thing's intelligent, it's thinking and you know, responding like a human. It's not. We would have recognized it as a database in the same way databases were being used far more crudely, you know, back in the 60s, for example. I wasn't alive in the 60s, I'll point out. So yeah, I think there will not be a point, unless we achieve consciousness with a computer, where it will be genuine soft skills. It will always be some form of simulation, and it will always be very narrow and focused and specific to one or a very small range of tasks. And that's why there will be more human jobs created than destroyed by automation, but a lot of those will be working in hybrid jobs, with robots and with algorithms.
I'm going to read up a comment here from one of our participants, and he's saying that I would say that it is in the matter of management of skills that make the greatness of mixture of soft and hard skills. That type of platform do not widely exist today, but are coming.
Yeah, and I want to be really clear that we're not at any stage saying hard skills are of no value. They clearly are, in some jobs more than others. But even in jobs which are really intensive in terms of hard skills, it's still the soft skills which make the difference. They're the kind of cherry on the top. They differentiate between your A players and your more mediocre performers and okay people. And I agree. I think it's being able to consider both and combine both that will be the most powerful, whether management of those things or not. I think for us as individuals, we need to have an awareness of what hard skill strengths we've got and what gaps we've got in our hard skills. We might choose to learn more, but we need to be equally aware of gaps in our soft skills and how we can manage those. And of course, yeah, maybe the two can balance themselves out. Sometimes we can maybe learn a hard skill to overcome a deficit in the soft skills. I think they do combine kind of nicely. If you can do both, then great. I think our position at the moment is there is still far too much emphasis, certainly in recruitment, on hard skills alone, and not enough consideration of soft skills. I think that's where it becomes really, really clear in the debate.
And if we're talking about attract the right soft skill, how can employers do that? Is it important to signpost them in the job advert or just through the recruitment process?
Both. So we've always stuck with a model or philosophy called two-way selection, and that basically says normally in selection and recruitment, it's the employer making a decision about the candidate. In actual fact, it's two-way. The candidate is also making a decision about us. And that's why employer branding has become so valued and so important. It's why job ads need to work hard. But it only really works if you do it all the way through the process. So the recruitment process itself is consistent with the job ad. And early leavers are often the ones which formed one impression of you through your branding and your ad, and a very different impression when they got to the recruitment stage and then into the job itself. And it's kind of a mismatch of expectation. So in job ads, be blunt, be really direct, describe the soft skills that you know are critical to great performance. And you can talk about great performance in this role, bring with them these range of soft skills, just be explicit about it. But when you're communicating your own employer brand, both visually and in the content you're using, think about the soft skills in your organization, its culture, its norms, its leadership style, the kind of things that make some people really want to stick around because they love working there. Because that will help the candidates in the end make a decision about whether it's right for them. And it will also help you attract the right kind of candidates, ones who are to use old language, really psychologically inclined to want to work for you and to stay with you, for a long time.
And if we are, because I can see that we have 10 minutes left, and I would like to talk about the Great Resignation as well. And is the Great Resignation a trend or a new reality?
I guess it can't go on forever in the sense we can't all resign, not all at once. I think it's, as I say, it's economists who label it that because they literally saw a massive resignation, certainly in America, in the spring of 2021 as things relaxed a bit, and they saw 4 million people quit, and that was the Department of Labour in the US who reported that. It wasn't sector specific or even role specific, it was across the board. And really, it was a symptom of those factors we looked at around the most toxic employers and unpleasant jobs becoming more obvious because of the treatment people have had during COVID, but also that change in personal values. So I don't think the Great Resignation itself will continue, but I think the causes of it will. And I think it will be increasingly hard for toxic employers with bad jobs, bad leadership styles to hang on to the best people. So if you look in finance and banking, Merrill Lynch were very clear very early that it expected people to be back in the office Monday to Friday at their desks as soon as possible. That's what they expected. They're very clear about it. That's their culture. I would imagine not everyone in Merrill Lynch now wants to do that because their personal values have been shifted by COVID. They've seen they can work at home, enjoy maybe better quality of life, and still be equally effective. Some will want to be in the office, of course. Other employers will look at that, and actually other banks have looked at that and said, well, actually, no, we feel a more hybrid approach is better for everyone. We don't need such big offices, and it suits our culture, and that will attract a different kind of employee. So I think there's going to be some moving about. I think anyone in Merrill Lynch who hates Monday to Friday might move to a different bank. I think anyone in a different bank who hates, flexible working will want a more traditional workplace like Merrill Lynch. I think some companies, some tech firms who have just got rid of their offices entirely will lose some people who don't like that, but gain some who do. So I think there is churn, let's say, as we get this clash between new values for ways of working within individuals, a recognition that not every employer's culture is a nice place to be for us personally. We want it to be somewhere else. And we've got high vacancies as well, so it's actually a bit easier to move at the moment. So I think it'll go on. I think we'll see this churn, but what we will see at the end of it is maybe a greater awareness between employers and people that some places are a better match for individuals than others.
So when we are talking about like how people will come back to the office, and I will see like that can be quite a challenge for people that is used to work from home, have the flexibility, people with children and sports and activities after work. What would you say are the challenges now when we're going from remote work to actually like flexible office hours when we are hiring millennials and Gen Z now?
Yeah.
Or general
Well, I think even before COVID, millennials, Gen Z were thought to have a different set of values, maybe to Gen X and certainly to boomers. I think it's in those sorts of discussions, it's always important to remember that people are people and not every Gen Z is the same. These are all individuals with their own psychological traits and soft skills. It's always tricky to treat people as groups, certainly on the basis of age. I'm Gen X. I know plenty of Gen Xers who are very boomerish, for example. I think the one important thing is to avoid making assumptions, and not all Gen Zs will want complete flexibility or complete working from home. There will be individual differences. I think what younger workers will value, and this is different maybe from older workers, is a bit more choice. And I think employers and job ads maybe do need to take into account that there will be employers who will have a grown-up conversation with a new hire and say, well, okay, what suits you? We want you to work more in the office for 6 months, maybe, to learn the culture, to learn the ropes, to get to know us. After that, it's up to you. I think that will become the preferred employer-employee contract, psychological contract, certainly as I guess younger workers move into the workplace. But yeah, what we're going to avoid is treating them all as one bunch. I think we sometimes see it in selection and assessment, where certainly graduate employers, for example, feel that all young people, in order to test them, you've got to use a game. And you know, that's and they believe that because they're young and they're a different generation. And there's something a bit patronising about that. I think there will be some Gen Z, some millennials who do want a very traditional workplace, and they will. The difference is, and we see it in the Great Resignation, they will now go fishing, go looking for the right workplace, and I think they'll be moving elsewhere. Gen X, actually, my age, the value has probably shifted in the other direction, because we have, I think, a lot of people in jobs have learned, as I was saying earlier, they can do their job anywhere, and they can achieve better work-life balance, and can see more of their kids, and can avoid losing 3 hours of their life every day to travel. I think business travel won't happen as much. We've seen that meetings, actually, the more routine ones, can happen remotely, and you might favour a workplace that sticks with that, rather than all being dragged into a different part of the country to, yeah, I guess, and be in the same room for half an hour. So I think there's a whole load of change which is happening. Actually, the common theme is it's all soft skills related. So whether, you know, for example, you're doing more video meetings or face-to-face ones, but that's drawing on soft skills, and maybe slightly different ones.
Nice to hear. So interesting now when we maybe soon are going to recruit more people to our office, and now when perhaps our corona situation is over soon. But I have one more question from our guests here, and this is regarding how we can like test soft skills in the application stage. So how well would you say that you can predict someone's soft skills by answering multiple choice questions?
Really well, if they're the right questions. Same with an interview. An interview can predict performance really well. It can measure soft skills really well if it's the right questions. What we know from science and from research is the most certain way to make good hiring decisions and to predict performance is to use more than one type of assessment. And the interview can be one of those, but the other one can't just be a CV. And that's really where something which is more specifically focused on soft skills will work best. So things like psychometrics, personality questionnaires, if they measure the right soft skills, that is important. You can't just measure any old thing and hope it's going to work. You've got to measure the things which actually are important to the role. That will help. If you use that information intelligently, in other words, don't just look for one kind of person, recognize that different soft skills strengths actually can drive performance in different ways, and make a good decision on that basis. And never forget that actually in things like intelligence, common sense, mental firepower are also a type of soft skill. So the degree to which people can overcome challenges and problems and difficulties by thinking hard about it, yeah, that is a soft skill, and that sometimes you need to measure that from something like an ability test. And there aren't really any jobs that only rely on ability, on your cognitive power, but a lot of jobs increasingly do require you to have to deal with a lot of information, you know, and analyze a lot of stuff from multiple sources. So you will be drawing on your cognitive abilities. So they can be a good soft skills assessment up front as well. And again, I wouldn't use them as a pass-fail. I would use them as a way of making an informed decision alongside other forms of assessment.
So nice tip for my next recruitment or to my clients. This is very nice. We're running out of time. The clock is ticking. I will thank you so much, everyone that have been watching this webinar, and so much thank you to you, Alan. So nice to have this hour to learn more about these topics. It was so nice to talk with you, and you have so much like ideas and tips, and your competence is so valuable. So we have some, of course, recording this webinar, and you will get my contact details afterward as well if you have any more questions. Otherwise, I will say goodbye and have a very, very nice Wednesday. Thank you. Bye.
Thanks everyone. Bye.